Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Hello video teachers.
My name is Putri Ali Puspita
And me, Meilania Inneke. Welcome to the 6th group. In this opportunity, we're gonna discuss about developing reading material for ESL learners, and we will divide this topic into 2 chapters. The first chapter is about selection of reading topics, and the second is about selection and use of.
And now I will explain the first part of developing reading materials for ESL learners. And the first part is selection of reading topics.
Before we explain about selection of reading topic, there is a brief introduction from our topic. It discusses such topic-related issues as reader interest, needs, and thema that have been found as key success in reading activity, and also deals with the selection and presentation of vocabulary items that have proven to significantly affect reading performance. So, this chapter discusses the issue of material preparation for a language reading course. It elaborates on some of the important elements that material developers should take into account in selecting and presenting the reading materials. Provision of materials is discussed in terms of the topic to be included and the vocabulary components of the content materials.
Selection of reading topics. Reading is undoubtedly one of the most salient and dominant activities in any language learning program. As Hoover and Gook 2011 argue, success in reading comprehension depends not only on language comprehension but also on decoding skills. In other words, readers should be able to both construct meaning from the language in which the text is written and to identify and process the words and phrases in the reading material. Therefore, appropriate selection and effective presentation of the materials appear to be the key for readers' success. With a wide variety of reading materials available to course developers, deciding upon the topics and content that will be really responsive to the needs, goals, and reading abilities of the readers is, in fact, a daunting task. With the new approach to reading as a complicated process of interaction between readers and material, interest in reading has gained noticeable attention from the experts, as it is often claimed that, in the absence of interest to read, very little or perhaps no reading will take place. Reader is likely to have a better performance on high than low interest passages. High interest passages tend to make reader read better, attend more, and work harder. For instance, interest, whether individual or situational, has been shown to cause persistence in reading and result in increased attention, better text processing, more recall of main ideas, and deep comprehension of the materials. By Clinton and Van Den Broek 2012, Heidi and Harek Kiewicz 2000, Krab 1999, and Schifele 1998. The reading content should be relevant to readers' needs and mirror the language materials that he is likely to encounter outside of the classroom as well. Readers should be able to make connections between the reading he does in the classroom and the examples of language he is going to experience in the large world. In other words, the materials should be as authentic as possible.
Okay, next, selection and use of vocabulary. We know that vocabulary is one of the most important components of language. You can understand a reading text with almost no grammar, but you can't get anywhere without vocabulary. Having decided upon the topics for the course, the next step for materials developers is the selection of appropriate vocabulary to present the content in a way that is adjusted to the linguistic knowledge and ability of the reader. Two important aspects should be taken into account by the ESOL materials developers in the selection of vocabulary. The first aspect has to do with linguistic factor, including such factors as frequency, rank, coverage, and divining power. It is often the case that items of higher frequency rates have a better chance of being encountered outside the classroom situation, and learners will, as a result, get a better payoff for their learning effort. On the other hand, items that are used in a variety of language registers are more useful than those with high frequency rates that are specific to a special register. Moreover, care should be taken to give priority to items of wider coverage. For instance, part owned covers a wider sense than dress up, which has a more specialized meaning. Jadi maksudnya ketika kita ingin kita ingin menetapkan, setelah kita menetapkan topik untuk course-nya, untuk tugasnya, maka selanjutnya kita perlu untuk memantaskan vocabulary-nya, memantaskan kosakatanya. Jadi ada dua hal. Yang pertama itu adalah linguistik. Nah, jadi kita perlu melihat keadaan siswa, keadaan classroom situation, keadaan ruang kelasnya, dan juga kemampuan pelajar. Jadi gunakan kosakata yang dekat dengan keadaan mereka, yang dekat dengan situasi mereka. Sebagai contohnya tadi adalah put on. Itu mempunyai pengertian yang lebih besar daripada dress up, di mana dress up mempunyai arti yang lebih spesial atau arti yang lebih khusus. Okay, next. Having selected the appropriate vocabulary, the next step for the materials developer is the effective presentation of vocabulary items in the reading text. In order for the learners to master new forms with much less effort and more efficiency, they should be effectively presented and recited. For the ESL readers to master new vocabulary items, they need not only to be exposed to the most frequent forms, which are by the same token the most useful ones, but also to frequently revisit them at spaced intervals in the follow-up activities and lessons. Therefore, the repetition of the vocabulary item in instructional reading material should be carried out in a way that when a new item is introduced, it gets repeated a number of times in the same lesson or successive reciting, and then across the following lessons in the course or spaced reciting for learning consolidation purpose. Work knowledge is multifaceted. By the same token, words can, depending on the contents in which they are used, present a number of meanings. Among others, word knowledge includes the knowledge of its different associated word senses, shades of meaning, and knowledge of its different contextual uses. It's Keyword and Lisauk, 2020, Nation, 2001, and Stahl and Nagy, 2006. As a result, the selection and prioritization of the different meanings of a given word should be a major concern in the development of ELT materials. Readers should be provided with ample opportunity to extend their depth of knowledge of the different layers of meanings of the vocabulary items that are of frequent use in general English. In order to facilitate learning of the new vocabulary items in the reading text, another effective practice is to bring to the attention of the reader a number of new items in each reading assignment with different possible techniques. For instance, some items can receive direct focus for instruction, with some other being in an indirect focus state. While a substantial number of forms can be placed in indirect focus state by just being semantically reading to the topic of the reading, it is a good practice to have some of them in direct focus state by boldfacing, underlining, coloring, closing them in the text, or questioning them in the follow-up reading activities. Okay, so in conclusion, material developers should have access to both the reference sources on how to write instructional materials and the corpus-based findings about frequency and distribution of the use of lexical items in real language use. With the massive information corpus linguistics has provided on the issue, it is hoped that such findings find the chance of creeping into the process of ELT materials development. With this necessity in mind, by Romer 2008 argues that the instructional material should reflect the type of language the learners are likely to encounter in natural situations, so that their learning attempt is well. So maybe that's all from 6th group explanation. If you have something, you can ask in the space provided. Okay, thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.